There are new reports that Sergeant Bergdahl's defense plans to portray him as a whistleblower. Lawyers will reportedly argue that he walked off his base in 2009 because he was heading to a different Army post to report wrongdoing that he says was being committed in his unit, but he didn't feel comfortable going to the leadership there. Some of Bergdahl's platoon members say that story for them just doesn't add up. Sergeant Evan Buteau is among them, and he joins me now. Sergeant, welcome back to the program. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me back.
So obviously his defense is formulating their plan, and in that plan they're claiming that he couldn't be a deserter because it wasn't his intention to desert. He just wanted to leave and go to the closest forward operating base in order to lodge a complaint against all of you and the leadership in the unit. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, frankly, it's asinine. There is so much more to this story that there's not enough time in any interview to let people know the details of this story. And having been one of the few people who was on the ground there seeing this happen, we all can attest that it's somewhat laughable that this is what they're coming forward with. One of the first things we look at is we were on day 4, roughly, of a 5-day mission. We were literally out just within hours going to be packing up our trucks and driving back to FOB Sharana, which was the closest FOB to where we were at. If he would have waited literally 5 to 10 hours, he was going back to FOB Sharana anyway, and he could have reported any wrongdoing that he thought was going on at that point. I mean, it's laughable at this point.
Was there anything to it? Do you have any thought about what he could possibly be referring to?
I mean, anyone who's ever been in the military knows that every unit, whether it's a platoon or a company or a battalion, they have problems. There's bad leaders, there's leadership issues. And there was in our unit. And by unit, I don't mean platoon specifically or company or battalion or brigade, but just anywhere. But the problem is you would not walk away in the middle of the front lines. I mean, it's hard to even comprehend that thought.
And it would
think that you would go
a very unwise move, to say the least, because he was captured by the Taliban shortly thereafter he left. Even if his story were to hold up, it would have been a not very wise move, and exactly what would have everybody would be afraid would happen is exactly what happened. I want to show you something from the New York Times, from an editorial. It says, trying him for desertion and misbehaving before the enemy for allegedly engaging in misconduct that endangered his unit stands to accomplish little at this point. A conviction would most likely deprive a traumatized veteran of benefits, including medical care, which he will probably need for years. A dishonorable discharge would make it harder to rebuild his life as a civilian. They're saying that any sort of treatment or sentence for him would be very problematic for him because he is such a troubled young man, and that wouldn't be fair. What do you think?
Okay, I mean, clearly, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. I mean, everybody knows that. I don't know if anyone who released that article has been in the military or knows the responsibility, the honor of being in the military, but this was a dishonorable act. You commit something like this, and you have to answer for that, and there is consequences. If you commit a crime, there is a trial and there's a process, and if you get convicted, there is time you serve. There are benefits like your freedom that you don't get to have anymore because of what you did. And there's no difference here. He put himself in that situation. I don't wish upon anybody to have to go through things that he may have gone through. However, he put himself into that situation. Him putting himself into that situation put our lives in extreme danger, far more than just the everyday life of being in Afghanistan on the front lines anyway. And he has to answer for that. And if he gets dishonorably discharged and has no benefits, I do not feel sorry for him, because he put himself there, and that's what he deserves, that he was incredibly dishonorable, and he doesn't deserve the benefits that honorable soldiers receive when they get out of the military.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. Thank you for your service. I know this is very frustrating for all of you, and we'll see how this all goes. Good to have you with us. We hope you'll come back soon.
Thank you. Anytime.
Thanks, Sergeant.